All right, let's get this thing started. We're going to turn that off, and then we're going to turn it off over here so I can hear everybody. And then we're going to click this. And I just want to make sure your mic is on, and your mic's on, and my mic's on. How's it going, everybody? My name is David. This is UnBowed Productions, and that is Paris Monroe or Tyrone. How's it going, my man?
I'm doing great, David. How are you?
I am doing fantastic as always. I love sitting down talking with great artists, and this is going to be a fun one. So, before we launch into anything, I think it's important for people to really know where they can support you and chat with you. So, what's your social media? How do we listen to your music?
So I'm on all digital streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, all that good stuff. My social medias, I'm mostly active on Instagram and TikTok. However, my website is in my Instagram bio. I just made it recently, so you can go there. You can get all the bio and all the ins and outs of me, and you can sign up for my newsletter at the bottom if you want to be updated on more stuff and all the rest.
Perfect. And yeah, music on Spotify is under Paris Monroe.
Yep.
Bunch of tracks up there. You're getting some really good traffic. And one of the songs that we just played, which was Saturday Night.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
go check that out. And let's talk about the first thing, which is the how did you get into music? You know, when anybody's seen you or they look at your bio, it talks about the fact that this isn't your first rodeo, but let's get into it.
Yeah. So that's a really good way to put it. It's not my first rodeo. There's like I feel like there's a million different ways you can answer the question how you got into music. But from the beginning, I started playing piano like when I was like 5 years old. I didn't really no, I wasn't like not at that age was I like I want to be a musician. That didn't come around until I was like 11, and once I was 11, I saw this one artist, and I was like, yo, whatever he was doing, I'm gonna do, like, no matter what. And then from there, it's only kind of grown. When I was younger, I used to play in a hard rock band, and then that kind of transformed into Paris Monroe as a duo, and now Paris Monroe is just me as an individual. But yeah, I've released music before on another band and had lots of like live performing experience, doing that type of stuff. And I also went to a private school, which is heavily was it focused on like theater and arts. I went to the London Waldorf School. We used to do music and plays all the time. So not even just as a band sense, but just kind of growing up, I had quite a bit of performing experience just naturally.
And there's a couple of things to dive in there. Let's do the fun one first. Who was the artist who I think I have an idea, but who was the artist that kicked you into it?
Well, I'm gonna guess that you're probably not correct because this is like an old school one, but it was the band Asking Alexandria. When I was
Okay.
younger, I saw the final episode music video, and at 11 seconds in, Danny Worsnop, the lead singer, he picks up the microphone, his long black hair falls in his face, and when I was 11 years old and highly impressionable, I was like, yo, that guy, whatever he does, I didn't know what the song sounded like yet. I was just so taken back. And I always thought that was really interesting too because I watched other people's stuff like the Justin Bieber Never Say Never movie, and I thought it was really cool. And I was always into music growing up, like my dad was into it and stuff. And I always thought about it. I was like, well, why was it that guy that for some reason was the one who was like made me give like a sense of purpose?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have the answer to that, but I think about it quite often.
Well, but I think that's important. We all sort of want or the media wants to latch on the media wants to latch on to sort of the popular one, the big name. But when we talk about it so much, it's the relative unknowns. It's the smaller guys with the distinct sound, with the distinct look that really push us to where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's important to not let go of because
Oh yeah.
so the next one that you talked about that I want to get into a little bit is so you went to a school for the performing arts.
Kinda. The Waldorf is like a very unique curriculum. and there was just they have a big emphasis on creativity, not just performing arts. It was art and all aspects of it. I was never good at like painting or drawing, so when I was there and doing that type of stuff, we actually had a class called handwork, which we'd sew and crochet and knit and all that type of stuff. And I was never very good at
Mm-hmm.
that. I was like, oh man, like you mean like I was so bad. I literally, when I was a kid, grade 4, they put me like in the handwork room. They had to put me in a separate room to focus on my work because I was that bad at
Oh
it.
no.
Like pretty, I was pretty bad at the whole sewing thing. So, but yeah. So, but outside of that, there was a lot of music involved.
Hmm.
Um, I learned violin there for 5 years. I got lessons there, and we had an orchestra class, and I played violin in the orchestra. And yeah, like I had a choir class. We had music class specifically. Obviously, every school's got music class, but that was pretty great. And then, kind of towards the end of my time there,
Hmm.
we have the same teacher from grade 1 to 8, and they're supposed to like nurture and develop and understand like very personal
Hmm.
level. She ended up having to go on maternity leave because she got pregnant, and the teacher that came to fill her spot the last semester of grade 8, he actually used to be in a punk rock band called the Terminal Wallies.
Okay.
So he used to play guitar and stuff, and then I was finally like that was like my first year playing guitar, and then I was like, oh, sick, because then he'd teach everything through guitar and music, while my primary teacher was a lot more artistic, like the painting and the drawing and stuff.
Hmm.
So when I was with him, Mr. Hartman, it was really cool because we used to I don't know play so many songs, and him and I got along pretty well.
And that's where I was going to go with this is how important those key figures in your life, the one who not only inspires you but works with you to create that talent and that level. And for you it was you know the school and the teacher.
Yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
how much did that influence, working with him, influence which direction you went?
Uh, I wouldn't even. I don't even know if like working is exactly even the right word. It was more like they just tried to just introduce kids to a lot of creative
Hmm.
things. Whenever kid ran with it, would just run with it. So when I was younger, like obviously everyone wants to be a rock star. I mean, everyone wants to be a superstar,
Hmm.
right? But people are enamored with the idea, not what it actually means
Hmm.
to be that. So with him, he just kind of like he taught me like some songs that I still know to this day, like "Home" by Edward Sharp, Magnetic Zeros, like iconic songs like that. And we used to play them. Like he was the guy who taught me "Back in Black" by AC/DC, like that, right?
Yeah.
Like formative moments like that, right? And then I don't know, he's kind of helped me like understand the instrument because it's like my first year playing guitar and I'd always played piano
Hmm.
before. So yeah, no, we just jammed, man. Like truly, it was just kind of very like the very humble beginnings. But I would like to sing too, right? So
Hmm.
it was acoustic based, like campfire chords and stuff. And we did at my graduation we performed "Home" by the Edward Sharp Magnetic Zeros, and we did "The Cave" by Mumford and Sons. And that was like the first time I ever like changed my guitar into like a crazy tuning
Hmm.
because they had like open chords and stuff.
Yeah.
So just kind of like my kind of walking through the path of understanding the instrument.
And speaking of understanding instrument, you touched on a couple of things, and again, it's in multiple directions, but we'll hit on them. But where did you? So you graduated grade 8. How
Yeah.
did you continue the path of learning your
Well,
instruments and
yeah. So
yourself?
I was fortunate enough. My dad, like I said, put me into piano when I was 5 years old, and I was taught by two teachers from 5 to 7. Then from when I was 7, I had the same piano teacher until I was 19. I just don't take lessons anymore. Actually, her and I still keep in touch as of recently, which is really great. But yeah, so I took piano lessons, I took guitar lessons, I took violin lessons. So post grade 8, I kept taking guitar lessons with my teacher, which his name is Phil Stasiak, and I took those until I was about 16. And then I always what kind of I kind of have like a similar story to Shawn Mendes, where it was like I had like a pretty good understanding of things, but I just wanted to play and sing
Hmm.
songs. So I just watched these songs I loved, and then I would just learn how to play them. And then kind of when I got older, when I kind of met my engineer, he was just like, play a hit song, tell me how it feels, right?
Hmm.
So I played like "Go Your Own Way" by Fleetwood Mac and stuff. And then I realized with all these songs, because I was like the campfire kid, you know what I mean? Like just I'll play a song everyone knows,
Yeah.
like, but like more than just Wonderwall. Like I had like a whole arsenal of songs because I just would just sit and play in my room, right? So I kept developing it that way. But when I kind of, he said, play a hit song, tell me how it feels, and I looked back to all the songs I knew, like Fast Car by Tracy Chapman and everything. Like there's true magic in all those songs in their own unique way. And I was like, oh, I get what it means. Like when you have something special, like
Mhm.
it just you feel it and it kind of plays itself.
That yeah, and you've hit on something that I've been sort of trying to emphasize through all the interviews is that you can't just stick to one genre, can't just do one thing because the inspiration, the ideas can come from just about anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I think with the whole sticking with one genre thing too, it kind of like humans are highly dynamic people, or not people, things, right?
Hmm.
So, um, to just do one thing, it kind of only scratches one itch.
Hmm. And I mean, like, if that's your thing, enjoy it. But I've never met anybody. Nope, that's a lie. I probably have. Who only listens to one genre exclusively. You
Yeah,
know, we all, even me, who is fully admitted I'm not the biggest country fan in the world. There are country tracks that I enjoy and are part
yeah.
of my normal spin.
Mhm.
So let's dive into that one just a little bit more for a minute. Who would you consider both, sort of on a personal level, your inspirations, but then inspirations for the the persona?
Uh, it's an interesting question because well, first off, I always say this thing, and people are always like, "How do you even compare those two?" But both on a personal level and an artistic level, Johnny Cash and Justin Bieber, I
Okay.
see those people being very similar in principle. But the thing with, I try not to even have a persona, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense, because I don't want to have to wear a hat. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to like, you mean turn it on or turn it off, right? Paris Monroe is just like a, it's more of like an extension of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like not who I am. It's not me trying to be something I'm not. It's just a very vulnerable side of myself, an artistic, poetic side of myself.
Okay.
Nothing more than, it's not like a fabrication or like a amplification of who I am. It's just one side of who I am.
Interesting way to put it. So when talking about, sort of the personas that we create for our public face,
Yeah.
um, I always like to use the reference from Dwayne Johnson,
Hmm.
who said that The Rock is just Dwayne turned up to 11.
Yeah.
And
No,
that's
that makes
because
sense.
of that's how that character has to be. But let's dive into that a little bit. Let's talk about identity and I so as an independent artist, who you are and what you bring to the table is incredibly important. Not that it isn't for anybody else, but without the full machine behind you,
Yeah.
it's all on you. And we talked about that a little bit earlier, just before we started, is that we have to wear many hats, but the
Hmm.
public facing hat is incredibly important.
Hmm.
And you've done the band bit and the partnership bit and now this. How have you gone about, like, where has this come from and how have you developed the person that we see on stage, I think, is the way to go about this.
Good question. How did I become the man that I am?
Exactly.
In a sentence, I don't know. Like 21 years of life. I guess, yeah, like my artistic development has been a long journey for sure. Um when I was younger, like I said, I was into hard rock, metalcore. Like I was really, speaking of like one genre, when I was a kid, and when I came across Asking Alexandria, Bring Me the Horizon, all those bands, I was like, man, I am metal. I like metal. This is who I am. You know what I mean? Um, and I grew up on a lot of different types of music. Like I was listening to like Bullet for My Valentine when I was like really young. You mean like I was always into that, but always into rap and everything. But sorry, that's kind of not the question.
Hmm?
But um, so when I was in my band, um, I wanted to amplify that. I was like, all I did when I was a kid was I just watch YouTube live performances of my favorite bands and how like passionate and just like kind of like off the chain the shows were. Obviously, like that's kind of what the metal scene is. But I wanted to, have that energy, that adrenaline.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to perform very, I guess, I was very like, kind of sporadic and energetic and very like animalistic, like Axl Rose or something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I looked up to him a lot too. But it went from that, my artistic development, so to speak. It went from that because I was a young kid or whatever, blah 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 blah. And also the other thing with that too is like I think when everyone's a kid, it's like you just make as much noise as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Like that and then it's like, oh well, let's try to actually write a song. Or let's try to do music, and then it's like, oh, then you try to figure out how to write a song, and it's like, oh, right, so it can't be just noise.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I kind of went from that, and then the band kind of died out because we like lost our drummer. And I was just kind of, I've always wrote like acoustic tunes. Like I never even really played electric guitar. Like I can do the rhythm thing because I play acoustic like all day, right? But I was never really that. So after all the shows in my hard rock band, I always made this joke. It's like I'd be listening to like the 1975 or like Harry Styles afterwards. You know what I mean? I'd
Mm-hmm.
be out there all intense, then it'd be like pop music afterwards. So it kind of transferred from that, but I really, I really just wanted to like kind of soundtrack my life,
Mm-hmm.
if that made sense, and like kind of tell my story because people who kind of knew me more were like, man, like you're a pretty, not to sound narcissistic or arrogant, like you're a pretty unique guy. So why don't you just try to write? Like, why don't you say what you want to say?
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually crazy because I went to a private school as well for my post-secondary. I went to OEART, which is the Ontario Institute of Audio Recording Technology. And one of the teachers there, Dean Nelson, who's worked with the Rolling Stones, Dr. Dre, he's like a highly prestigious assistant engineer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he just said this thing one day. He was like, close the books, everybody. He's like, this stuff you won't be marked on, but this is stuff that you need to know. And it was kind of how to deal with artists, not just deal, but like nurture artists when you're working with them in the studio and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's got to the point of like lyrics and like the actual like sentiment and content of the song. And he was like, this is one, it's like, it's touching the baby. He's like, you want to watch what you critique if you critique anything, right? But he said, and this is kind of what changed everything for me. He was like, when you're listening to an artist, you just have to ask yourself, are they saying what they want to say? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then, and he's like, and if they're not, ask them like, how would you, like, is this what you want to say? And would you, like, if these were your last words, is exactly how you kind of say it? And I was like, man, I felt like an idiot because I was doing music in my band for so long. I was like, isn't that the whole point of music? Like, I was just like, I've never actually said what I wanted to say ever. It was just kind of like, make music for people to run at each other for. So I was just like, going home and I'm writing a song. That's it. So and it kind of just started from there. And obviously I didn't even know exactly what I was doing. I just spared my soul and poured my heart out. And then that's kind of, so my artistic development as to where it stands today, that was like the moment where I was like what I love about it is the first foot forward was the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't want to sound pretentious, but I don't hear a lot of the truth in music anymore.
No, and you've hit on a couple of things, and I'm gonna say it. We're gonna put a pin in it, and then we're gonna circle back around. Is how important it is to work with a producer and to get to that comfort level with a producer. But we're gonna put in that pin in that and circle back around. And one of the things that is UnBowed and what we're all trying to do is we are moving away from that record label era where you have the ability as the consumer, as the enjoyer of music, to find the music that you want. It's becoming a little bit harder without the labels because now you've got to go and find it yourself, and obviously we're working on that. But everybody has the ability to set up a small studio in a room and do their stuff. But I'm not sure about the authenticity and what you're talking about. Not that I don't think that they're not pouring their heart into it, but it's something that you touched on. Forgive me for talking for just a little bit, but
No,
I
of
want I
course.
want to get us there. Is you were in a band, you were making the music you thought that you should be making, and I think that and I had a great conversation with a friend of mine, Jake Diab from Autumn Kings, when they switched from like pure rock into more of the pop scene, and
Mhm.
when you're not in the pop scene, there's kind of this looking down your nose at the pop. You know, oh, it's just a pop song. One, there's a lot of work that goes into making a pop song.
Yeah.
It's not as easy as I think everybody thinks, particularly in other genres.
Mhm.
But once they switched, once I don't think it's once they switched into pop. I think it's once they switched out of the genre that they thought they had to be in. They
Mhm.
were able to tell their own stories. They could make
Yeah.
whatever music they wanted to. So I'm getting the feeling that that's what you're saying. And how hard was it to switch your mind from the 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 rock punk, you know,
Yeah. Punk is a really good word for it too. Punk is a great word. It's very punk.
into what, you know, you've become?
Um, well, one of the things I will say about the whole pop music thing is I think I always say I am pop within structure. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because like it's funny. It's like you list what you think is the best song ever. It's probably an A B C B, man,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like writing an essay. This is how you get the point across. It's the hamburger, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a very clear way to get the point across, right? So I'm pop within structure, but aesthetically and stylistically, like my last single was a folk song,
Mm-hmm.
right? And like I got within that, I'm an artist. You mean? I usually use the same formula, so to speak, to get my point across, right?
Mm-hmm.
But stylistically, it's kind of whatever I'm feeling. Like I love the '80s. I love huge ballads. I love folk music. I love like I love '90s. I love everything. Like there's no like wrong answer for me. I love country. Like truly, you want to know how to write a hook? Listen to Morgan Wallen, man. He'll show you how to do
Mm-hmm.
it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and you can not like the genre for
yeah,
me, but you can sit there and appreciate the musicality and the artistry.
yeah, oh yeah, exactly. So kind of it wasn't exactly hard to switch over because I wasn't being anything that I wasn't already. Because with the whole punk hard rock thing, like I grew up on that, and
Mm-hmm.
like when I was 11 years old, like my whole goal was I was like, I want to be in a band with five guys. I want to be in a brotherhood, and I want to do this thing, and blah blah. I want to belong to something. Like that was my huge thing. I really wanted to belong to something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I did it. You mean I had fun and I did my thing, and I like punk and I like hard rock. Like I still listen to that type of music all the time. Um, but I wouldn't say I grew out of it. I just wanted to do different things. Right? There's a part of me that will always be, that animalistic front man with the explosive energy,
Mm-hmm.
right? But truly, I just want people to take me not even like seriously because it wasn't that they didn't take me seriously then. I just want people to know that because what would bother me would people always be like they'd hear me in person or in the car or at an acoustic set. We did an acoustic show with my band,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, "Wow, like you can actually really sing." Like, it's been 2 years, man. Like, of course, like I'm more than just like an energetic little thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little rocket. Um, so I don't know. So I just wanted to people to I my thing now, and this is when I look at some of my favorite artists like Brian Adams, Shawn Mendes. And I'm using these ones as like
Mm-hmm.
examples. There's no gimmick. There's no scandal. It's nothing but the music,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Exactly.
But there's gimmicks. Like he had ups and downs and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Adams, it's been a clean career since like Reckless. You know what I mean? Like there's been nothing except for huge tunes like Heaven and Everything I Do It for You and Summer of '69. It's just there's nothing but great music.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of where I'm at now is like I want people to like me for who I am, right? But for the music.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. I don't want it to be because I'm some controversial character that gets attention. There's nothing. I won't say there's nothing wrong with that, but that is one way to like bring in the
Mm-hmm.
masses. I don't want to be known for that. I just want to be known for a guy that's honest, integral. um, and really loves what he does and puts his heart into it.
Yeah, you've hit on something, and it's always been a part of how I do interviews. I just don't think until I've talked to you that I've been able to put a comment to it, which is you. It's not about when I talk to artists and I say, I can hear influences in their music because that's how we are, but I never want to say it because the reality is, I think that what you're talking about, and I think what we're talking about here is once you remove yourself from the label, from the genre specific, it frees you to be genreless when you're writing. Sure, you're writing it in that sort of pop format,
Yes, exactly.
but the song itself let somebody else call it a pop song.
Exactly.
You are just writing your music.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Like, well, two things I wanted to mention with that is like Ed Sheeran, for example. Like, he's someone I look up to highly in his format of his business.
Mm-hmm.
Because what I love about him is like the loop pedal, and he's completely independent. Like he will. What I love what he does is he'll get all of Madison Square Garden to shh. He'll step away from the mic. He'll unplug the guitar, and he'll just play to the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
What I love about that is it's like there's no bells and whistles. There's literally no amplification, like not even a microphone anymore. Just turn the lights on at that point. You know what I
Yep.
mean? I've loved him for that reason. But the thing is, like Shape of You, for example, like he didn't even want to release that song, and it wasn't because he didn't like it. He was like, well, it's just it's not what I've usually done. And now he's in a position where he's talked about that, where he's like, my engineers and people around me were like, this is going to be the biggest song of your career.
Mm-hmm.
Do it, right? And he's like, well, now I love it because now I realize he was like, if you don't reinvent yourself every time you put something out, it's like it's double on its sword. He's like, you do something new, it's like, oh, he's changing, and then if you do something old, it's like, well, we've heard this before,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, there's always that problem, and now he's like, I just do what I want to do. I love it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So with that side of thing, but people call him pop no matter what he does. He can like Photograph 18 was acoustic, beautiful, very raw production to Shape of You, which is a very dance song. It's like, well, it's pop. It's like, well, those are two completely different songs. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So it's pop or whatever. But what was actually a really good moment for me personally was after the show that I played last
Mm-hmm.
week. There was a guy who's actually the lead singer of the band, the lead singer of a band who my old guitarist from my old band is a part of. So they're called Prisoner. Shout out Prisoner. They're like very Iron Maiden-y, Pantera-esque, like guitar solo harmonies, very complicated stuff type band. They're really cool. But he came out to me and he was like, like he's a very articulate and intellectual person.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just saying, he was like, man, he was like, I'm not into pop music, right? He was like, not that I don't like it, because there's certain artists like you grew up with on the radio and you have a connection with because they're part of your life, right? Because you always heard of them.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, I'm into those few specific artists, and he was like, not this isn't my words, so I don't want to be pretentious, but he was like, you are so much more than pop music. He's like, truly, you are one of the people that I would, as a guy who is all about, making honest music and honest work and not just paint by numbers pop tunes, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are a lot more than that. And that was like one of like the most like reassuring and validating things coming from someone who's into what they call honest music, because it's very complicated and very hard to create,
Mm-hmm.
right? That was like a big pat on the back for myself. Like, man, it's like if I can win over those people,
And
then hopefully I can win over some more.
and that's just it. That's the as much as anybody wants to be down on it, there is a universality of falling within that pop genre. But you talked about it, like the pop genre is so broad and so that you can write a hard you can write a punk song and still fall within the pop category. You can write a country song. You can write whatever you want.
Yeah, it's like Nirvana, man. It's Kurt Cobain. Like that's literally when I'm writing songs. That's who I think of, right? Kurt Cobain. He had three criteria: catchy, simple, memorable.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. You mean he just took? You mean obviously the Ramones did it in other bands, but like Kurt Cobain, like you mean he like he figured it out,
Yeah.
and then he just filed them off. Like you mean it's like you mean like that is like say what you want. I mean Nirvana is like a very well respected band, right? That's supposed to be honest music. It's pop music
Yeah.
construction. There's nothing more to it.
Oh, 100%. And that's why they were one of the even Soundgarden, the front runners of the grunge movement.
Mhm.
These are I don't want to say just pop songs, but that's why they hit so much
Yeah,
popularity.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, one of the biggest things my engineer always said, and loads of artists will tell you this that are actual artists. You strip a song down, just you and the acoustic guitar, you and the piano. If it's not a hit there, it won't be a hit anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You can play all the Nirvana songs, Soundgarden songs, just you on the acoustic guitar,
Mm-hmm.
and it's still bang. It's still going to be great, right? It's like, what is it? Like my engineer always says, like I don't want to polish crap. It's like let's make it great here first, and then like you mean there's nothing I can add to it if it isn't great here to make it great.
Yeah, exactly. Though there can be some fun in that, particularly when we're talking in pop, and we'll do this because this is a good transition into talking about engineers and trusting.
Perfect.
Um, I wish I could remember the album, but it's Simon and Garfunkel, the one with The Sound of Silence, I Am a Rock, that sort of stuff. Some of the most iconic songs that still today, like when Disturbed re-recorded Sound of Silence, they didn't really change all that much. They just made it their own style, and it's still
Yes.
such an iconic song and still hits hard. Like when you listen to that song, if you're not tearing up just a little bit, you know.
Yeah.
Have you heard their original version of that album?
Not the entire album.
I,
Um,
I don't think anybody's heard that. And like, I know they released it as they intended to. I don't know anybody who's ever been able to listen to the entire thing.
no, exactly. But one of the things I wanted to say actually about that song specifically, "The Sound of
Hmm.
Silence," that has got. I think about songs often, like what song has the best opening line ever or the most iconic.
Mm,
It's either that, I think in my mind that I can think of, "Hello Darkness, My Old Friend," or "Hurt" by not Johnny Cash, obviously Nine Inch Nails, but like "I Hurt Myself Today to See If I Could Still
yeah.
Feel." I think about that, and definitely Simon and Garfunkel are, you mean in the runnings for the best.
Yeah. And though that opening, when you find an opening line like that, it just, both of
It's
those songs kind of just, sorry, say again?
it's game over. Like try
Exactly.
to, it's like so hard.
And I know what you're saying, that if you can't just sit there with a guitar and yourself and make it sound good,
Mhm.
like you've got to at least be at that point before we can go on.
Yes.
And The Sound of Silence, and when Simon and Garfunkel did it and they did their releasing, which is just the two of them, two guitars, the whole deal, it's good.
Oh,
But then
incredible.
when you add in the
Mhm.
production aspect, it's not Phil Spector, it's the producer, I'll look at later. When he added the orchestral elements and everything else and made it so much bigger, he already had a great base to work with.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
I think that this is a good time that the reason I want to talk about that is it is so easy to, you've got your own home studio, you're doing your thing, but it is so easy to get in the pocket and to be just sitting there in your own zone and where you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
And I, I want to get your opinion on that first before I launch into it, because I am very opinionated on that one. So
Sure.
so what do you think about this new era where we can do everything on our own, but do you think we should be doing everything on our own?
That's a good question. Um, I wouldn't say there's like a universal answer. I think it's subject by subject.
Mhm.
Um, I know even not even just with recording and production, but also just in songwriting, some people are very independent with it, and some people like to collaborate and do co-writes all the time.
Mhm.
One example is like Coldplay.
Mm.
If you look at a lot of the Coldplay songs, the only songwriters credited are the guys in the band, right? Obviously, that's still collaborating, but they're not reaching out and doing loads of co-writes with all these different producers or songwriters. And that's why Coldplay is Coldplay. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Because it's like it's not some other guy doing it for them. It's Chris Martin and the boys. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
within that kind of home studio thing, my engineer says it all the time, and he's won awards for actually like a few mixes he just did on his laptop and stuff. He said that it's the painter, not the brush,
Mhm.
right? So there's no denying that being in like a high class studio is going to have the tools and the resources to make things sound pristine, right? There's
Mhm.
no denying. Um, but I mean, if you put someone in there without the education knowing how to use it, like it's not going to add up to anything, right? So you can make great records in your bedroom, and you can make great records in the studio. There's no rules
Mm.
to getting the puck in the net, right? Just get the puck in the net, right? So
But I think you hit on it while talking about other things, is that it's not necessarily about the tools, the items, the objects. Yes, 100%. When we have our studio and it's world class, the
yeah,
stuff that we're putting out, but it's not necessarily because of those things. It's
mm,
because of the people that we have to do it.
yeah,
Our sound techs, our producers, the whole deal.
mm,
But and that's what helps you. And
mm,
even if you look at Chris Martin and the boys,
mm,
Chris, yeah, oh.
yeah, yeah,
There's the glitch. It happens every time. They're not doing it all on their own. Yes, they're
no,
writing the songs together, but it's not a song until they step into the studio.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and what I mean by being in the pocket is, that's a fighting term, in that you
yeah,
stay in the pocket, you stay where you're comfortable, you stay in the zone where you take the
right,
least amount of damage, though there is risk. When you
right,
step out of the pocket to get those big strikes and stuff, you're also at the most risk. So
mm,
so as a creator,
mm,
you're sitting there, and it there is the temptation to find your lane and stay within it, and you can produce good music that way. But I think that a lot of people who are in the, just starting out and things like that, you don't need to have a full professional producer who's going to charge you X number of dollars for what you're doing, but having somebody else with another set of ears to sit there and
yeah.
go, give me a little more here, or have you thought of it this way?
Man, you're summing up my life right now, man. So with that being said, kind of going back to what you said about like what is it like I think of it as like getting the right answer,
Mm.
if that makes sense. About having the tools but knowing how to use them, because I think about that all the time, man. Because actually, my old guitarist, who was over at my house last week, and we were kind of like just playing some songs together, and we were just talking about music and everything, because obviously he's on his path, which is the highly complicated solos and the guitar riffs and like different time signatures, and like that stuff is like so beyond even my realm of ability. Um, but we were speaking about it, and he was like, "Man, like he was like, I've heard a G chord a billion times in my life, but when Ed Sheeran plays it, he just gets the right answer."
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I think about that too, because I've written so many songs with the same chord progressions, right? But I like, do you know the song "Shallow" by Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper?
Mm-hmm.
That's just E, D with F sharp and G,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I played those good chords and that progression so many times. When they play it, it's boom, magic. And I was like, that's what I think about. It's like, oh, like why didn't I think? It's so simple, but the idea to create it, like that's comes from up here. You
Mm-hmm.
mean like that? You mean I love what Rick Rubin said about like there's no big fish. You mean like wherever it comes from, there's people that like are broadcasting ideas, and some people tune in and answer it, and some people just ignore it, right?
Yeah.
So just about that, like the ideas thing, and you're totally right about the just some people just know how to get the right answer. You mean because they tune in, they tune in.
Yeah, well, and you just hit on it, and I love when we start getting into these kind of conversations, because you don't have to have all the answers. As a matter of
No,
fact, it's probably best that you don't.
mm-hmm.
For
Yes,
like find yourself people that you trust to be mean to you, and that is the hardest thing to say. You know,
they have the right intentions for you.
exactly. If somebody's sitting there going like, you're doing it this way, I need more from you, or you're particularly when it comes to vocalists, and don't take this the wrong way, they can be a little bit lazy because they want to protect the instrument. But you know, somebody can sit there and go, no, you can push it higher. I need more out of you.
Yes. Oh
Or
yeah.
to push you into that vulnerable place, like really think about the lyrics and what it means,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
find people in your life that can do that. Sorry, please go ahead. You were gonna say something.
Yeah. So I was gonna say, I am super lucky, super privileged, super grateful, and super honored that I met my engineer Aaron Murray. I met him through the band, um, and it's quite a long story about how we kind of got to the point that we are. But essentially, when the band started, kind of like we were recording songs with the band, and then we kind of lost our drummer. Um, we started going in and recording acoustic songs, and that's kind of how I started forming into the person that I am today. Because I was the one, like but before my band, I didn't really write much, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had a guitarist who's insanely good at guitar,
Mm-hmm.
So like I was like, well, I can't keep up with that. You mean he'll just write the thing and then I'll just make a melody over it, and it was taking ideas and slamming them together and calling it a song,
Mm-hmm.
right? It didn't come from a very, but your kids, right? But it didn't come from a very like organic and like extension of oneself to the thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was like getting pieces and just kind of making them fit,
Mm-hmm.
right? But I mean, that's in my opinion, that's not really how you write a song. So when we got into the acoustic stuff, I mean, my engineer Aaron was like, well, like this is cool, and sure, like I can just keep taking your money and recording your music, right? But like, what's the point,
Mm-hmm.
right? You mean you got a punk band, like, you're in here writing love songs. You mean like what are you doing? And so that was kind of like, we're like, whoa, we lost a drummer and blah 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 and yada yada, and then right then kind of one day kind of you know I think a lot of people are hesitant to even talk because most people don't listen,
Mm-hmm.
right? How I always thought of Aaron, and my dad said it the best way. It's like people in music, they don't like listening to professionals because they think that they're trying to like kind of like hijack it,
Mm-hmm.
right? When they see someone and just take advantage of it. There may be some of that somewhere, but in my experience, it's like, dude, it's like you're not going to go to the doctor and start telling him that you know more. I mean, especially when you're 19 years old. So I've always been, and I would dedicate this to Waldorf, a very good listener. Uh, so when Aaron one day sat me down, well, all of us down, and he was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna ask you like a few questions here. Like, let's be honest, right?" And he was like, "Do you want?" He's like, "What's the point of you doing music?" I said, "Well, I like it." I said, "Okay. Do you want to make money or do you want to have fun?" I was like, "Well, it's got to be a bit of both, right?" My naive self,
Mm-hmm.
where I was like, "Hold on, you want it as a career or a hobby?" I was like, "Ideally, I'd like it to be my career." And he's like, "Okay. Um, with that being said, are you willing to invest tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, and potentially never see it back? And if you do, it won't be for a long time."
Mm-hmm.
And then when you're actually faced with that question from someone who's 20 years older than you,
Mm-hmm.
right, you're kind of like, whoa, right? And I was like, thinking of my 11-year-old self being naive and just wanting to, just be in a band and everything. And I was like, did I actually want it? You mean? Or am I just enamored with the idea? You mean? I was just like, my heart was like, I want it. Like like some people are just born artists, right? You can't take them away from it. So I was like, yes, I would be willing to do that. So that day, he just kind of just delivered it to me and all of us kind of what it actually takes to be an artist, or not just an artist, but a successful musician, as in having a career,
Mm-hmm.
right? So from kind of there on out, my relationship with him, as it's gone from a band to a duo to now just him and I, um, it speaking of, I need more, right? You don't even want to know how many times I've heard that. It's like, I need more zing. I need you more conviction. I need that with like 8-hour vocal sessions. And then when I write songs, I'll show him. And not that his opinion is the end all and be all, because I think in music, people have different check boxes,
Mm-hmm.
truly,
Mm-hmm.
right? What makes one great song great is different to what makes another great song great. And that's why I think about like a Nickelback number one is a lot different than a Harry Styles number one,
Mm-hmm.
right? But they're both number one. And I just use number one not just as an example of like a song that does well because it connects with people, right? Um, so from with my relationship with him over the last few years, he's definitely, guided me, had my best interest in mind, been very honest. When it's good, he'll tell. He's a hard person to impress,
Hmm.
truly, right? But when it's good, he tells me, and when it's bad, not that it's ever bad, right? But when it's like it's not who you can be.
Hmm.
He lets me know that as well. It's not like he's like that's trash, that's garbage, right? Because I'm in a position now where I want to sound pretentious, but like I have a consistent quality of writing.
Hmm.
You mean it's never going to be trash. It's just is that the best that you can do, right? Is that raising the bar, right? And and when I'm not, he lets me know, and when I am, he applauds me for it. So I've been very lucky to have the relationship that I do with him because if it wasn't like he's a integral part to my artistic
Hmm.
development.
Well, and you hit on so many things there, but I think the first one is find yourself people like that and surround them with you. It's
Yeah.
a good creative. You talked about it that like musicians, people who do this are always afraid of the professionals hijacking it and
Mm,
making it their own. But if you're ever afraid of that, that's not the person to work with. One, they haven't made you comfortable, that they're just trying to amplify your sound.
mm,
So if you're sitting there afraid that they're going to hijack your music, you need to be stop whatever it is you're doing, have the conversation with them, because if you're going into the studio with that feeling, whatever's coming out the other end, it,
yeah.
it's not where it could be or should be. It is instead, you
Mm,
being hesitant and them forcing.
mm,
Whereas what you were talking about, your relationship with the engineer, he's putting his sound on it by what he's doing. He's putting his mark on it, but he's only doing it to amplify you.
yes. Yeah. His fingerprints are there
Exactly.
for sure.
So the the I
Also,
no, 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 please.
I don't say fingerprints as in like he doesn't do a lot. I mean like his influence is very much there, and like we obviously he's the hands-on producer, but we I wouldn't say I'm a producer. I would say I'm a hands-off producer.
Hmm.
Um, right? It's very much there, right? It's a collaboration, but he's like he has such an ear for production. He has such an ear for harmony. He has such an ear for just all the bells and whistles that will just make it like feel like it's in another dimension of things. Um, and one thing I kind of wanted to mention about like the whole thing about hijacking and artists and like Adele said it when her new album came out like last year.
Hmm.
And she was like, "There's not." She's like, "This is why I haven't released an album in 6 years." But she's like, there's no value on integrity in artists anymore."
Mm.
And she's like, if you're an actual artist, like you're an actual artist, right? It has to come from that place, and that's one of the things that I've kind of realized a lot more recently. Is I find there's a lot of people um, who are great musicians,
Hmm.
but they're not artists as people, and like the people that I look up to, right? Um, like you look at a guy like Bob Dylan or Johnny Cash, like that. You mean that like, you don't look at him. He's like, oh, he's a guitar player. He's a musician. It's like, no, that guy is an artistic human being,
Hmm.
right? Staple of culture, right? Or just a staple as there's something special about that person. So when I write songs, um, it's not like I wake up every day and it's like, well, how am I feeling? Am I feeling happy? Well, let's write about walking to the store. It's like no, like I I really try to do the Rick Rubin thing where the first bit of work is heart.
Hmm.
He's like, there's hard work and there's head work. First, just throw up. You mean
Hmm.
start, just let it out, and whatever comes out, and then later make it make sense, right? So that's a lot of what I do. I don't just like write every day. It's like, well, I'm sad, so I'll write sad today, or I'm happy, or I'm angry, or I'm excited. And it's not about just emotions. It's about like events, and I base it off like my actual life. It's not just like I know. I think like a song like "Hurt"
Mm.
or a song I don't know like "Sign of the Times," Harry Styles, or "Fix You" by like Coldplay, like "Let It Be."
Hmm.
McCartney, man. You want to talk about an artist? You mean a guy that just one never misses, but two, it never feels like disingenuine or just like another song,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what I'm trying. He is so much more than like if there's any guys a king of not Michael Jackson, but king of pop, right, so to speak, right? It's you mean that guy's written more songs than like anybody, right? So I that's what I always try. I never want to push something in people's face. Like I don't want to be like, hey, here's my new song. Let me push it in your face and blah 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 and solicit myself. Um, if it's just another song, if it just doesn't mean anything, like my whole point, um, my whole mission statement as an artist, because I couldn't justify it any other way. Truly, for me, wanting people to like who I am,
Mm-hmm.
it has to. I have to believe that it can mean something to people in the way that artists when I was 11 years old meant something to me.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's the whole reason I do it because I knew at such a young age what an artist could do and give you like that sense of purpose and direction and comfort and relatability, um, and just like almost safety in a way. You mean because without music, I don't want to think about like the person I'd be,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's the state of the world, right?
Yeah.
But that's my mission statement truly because I know how important it is, and if I am ever lucky enough or grateful enough or privileged enough, not grateful but just privileged enough to get to that position where I can mean so much to so many, or just even a few, right? There's not one world. There's just 7 billion different versions of it. That's why that I mean now we're getting to like the bottom line, but like really that's why I do it. It's because there's just so much noise.
Mm-hmm.
You mean
Yeah.
that's what Matty Healy 975 was talking about. He was like I get the escapism thing, but he was like I just can't justify it to myself. You mean if it's like you mean like I can write a song and it's just not great, but like it might do well.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not an accurate representation of who I am and if I actually can make a difference to people. Right? He's like I can't just use my platform as like a multi-platinum selling recording artist and just put a song out because I think it will do well.
Mm-hmm.
He's like that's not the artist or like when you get to that point, if you do that, like you're not even an artist anymore. Like you mean you're a business.
Yeah.
Right? Anyways, you go.
No, there are other things I want to talk to you about,
Yes.
but I want to say them because there's nowhere to go from there. There are other directions to split off from, but I think that as an artist and to showcase you, yes, I think we're going to have more conversations as we continue, and UnBowed Productions is really looking forward to working with you in a lot of different ways. But that was the perfect end cap for a conversation. That's that like it's we can keep going, we can keep talking about a bunch of different things, and there are a bunch of different things I want to talk to you about, but they're never going to we're just going to bring the conversation down just a little bit to keep it going. So I think that here is a perfect place to stop for this conversation, and I'm going to say I'm looking forward to doing more.
Hey, I'm so grateful, privileged, honored, happy, excited to be here. I love chatting with you. Um, Thank you for having me, and I appreciate it so much.
Thank you so much for coming on. And all of Paris Monroe, Tyrone stuff is going to be in the bio, in the links, in the down. Please go check him out. Give him your love. Give him your support. Whenever you're releasing stuff and whenever you are doing a show, please let us know, and we're going to let everybody know about it because that's important.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for the interview, and we will talk again soon.
All right. Take care.